Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas is already laying the groundwork for a run in 2024. Jake LaHood of Business Insider reports a prospect that should terrify everybody. Because while Trump has fascist inclinations, he's sort of a dollar store accidental fascist. He's too incompetent to realize his fascist potential. Tom Cotton, on the other hand, is an actual fascist.
Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton is facing criticism for describing slavery as a, quote, necessary evil.
President Trump avenged the murder of hundreds of Americans by killing Iran's terrorist mastermind, Qasem Soleimani.
His piece Wednesday, titled "Send in the Troops," called for an overwhelming show of force and sparked an online revolt at the New York Times. The Times issued a statement after it published it. This review made clear that a rushed editorial process led to the publication of an op-ed that did not meet our standards.
They totally surrendered to a woke child mob from their own newsroom that apparently gets triggered if they're presented with any opinion contrary to their own, as opposed to telling the woke children in their newsroom, this is the workplace, not a social justice seminar on campus.
God, he's so smug. What the New York Times newsroom had a problem with is that you published an article in their editorial page that advocated for the use of troops on American citizens who were protesting because black people get murdered in the streets. That's fascism. They had a problem with those kinds of words being printed in the paper of record when you can publish conservative opinions, but that crosses a line. But then he got his, amazing Fox News soundbite where he got to dunk on the snowflakes. And by the way, they initially ran your fascist article, so what are you complaining about? Calling it a rag, essentially. You wanted your piece published in the New York Times, so he's the worst. He's currently campaigning for Donald Trump in New Hampshire, the second state in the Republican primary, which is not a coincidence because Donald Trump is not going to win New Hampshire. It is a small state when it comes to the Electoral College and fairly meaningless in the presidential contest. It's super clear what Cotton is doing there. With 15 days left before Election Day, Cotton was dedicating his time to small events in a state worth just 2 electoral votes, where Trump is down by an average of 11 percentage points. Both the candidates he was campaigning for, Matt Mowers, a 31-year-old former Trump advisor and State Department official, along with Corky Mesner on the Senate side, a 64-year-old attorney whose firm represents Chipotle, remain long shots to oust their Democratic incumbent opponents. Cotton's efforts were also not widely publicized to attract voters. Instead, they were small, intimate stops that gave Republican donors and state lawmakers a chance to kick the tires on Cotton ahead of a potential 2024 bid. The kinds of Republicans Cotton was mingling with can offer donations, venues for events, and also offer up their homes for campaign staff to stay in during primary season. On the trail in New Hampshire, Cotton politely hung back in the conversation and avoided much eye contact with attendees. However, his rhetoric did begin to mirror his Times op-ed, which was titled, "Send in the Troops." Cotton used precise militaristic terms when responding to officers expressing their dismay at rioting in American cities and their view that Antifa is underestimated by the news media. One of the best ways to avoid the necessary use of force in a setting like that, with potential rioting and looting, is to have an overwhelming display of force from the beginning to make it clear to the criminal element who may be infiltrating those protesters that you'll brook no violence against persons or property whatsoever, he said. The senator was met with nodding approval from the officers in the idyllic New England town. "I expect I'll be back to New Hampshire again in the future," Cotton told Insider, just being open about it now. "But for right now, especially with 15 days until this election, we are focused 100% on these elections coming up." Biden needs to respond to this by implementing policies that actually help people if he is elected, hopefully. He needs to meet these crises. He needs to meet this moment. The economic depression, the pandemic, these are things that are not going away without serious intervention and a push towards actual progressivism and a reckoning internally with Biden, where he actually has to get it within himself and create some sort of gumption to be strong enough in this time period. That's what is necessary to actually push forward and ensure that the economic harm and what's left isn't so horrible that this kind of fascism is appealing to people. Because then we're in an extremely dangerous place if Tom Cotton gets some kind of traction in the 2024 presidential race.